Just under a week ago, we got a proper showcase of the content intended to tide us over for the next 4 months. And because it is a day of the week, I want to yap about it. We got a confirmation of what we already knew. Patch 7.1 will release on November 12th, so we're close enough that if you haven't finished your PvP pass yet, you should be sweating just a tad. But we also got news that the actual content within the patch will be split across 5 different dates. On the launch itself, you'll have access to the new main scenario, quest and dungeon, the Akko Unreal, the new Extreme Trial, definitely not Beast Tribe, and the Alliance Raid centered on Final Fantasy XI. 2 weeks later, on November 26th, Future's Rewritten Ultimate comes out. 3 weeks after that comes 7.15, including a new custom deliveries vendor, Hildebrand quest series, and new Wachumeki Meki quests. And a week after that, yes, you have that right, it's on Christmas Eve, the Chaotic Alliance Raid will release. A month later, on January 21st, will come the new role quests, and that is the entire new content catalogue of the patch, at least on the surface. There's a lot more that's worth talking about despite this though. As a side note, this patch has an excellent release cadence for raiders as far as I'm concerned. On patch release, we get the Extreme Trial to farm, and the new Unreal to do every week, and then 2 weeks later we get the Ultimate, then 3 weeks after that we get the Chaotic Alliance Raid. 3 dates in a single patch to get excited for. I'm quite chuffed with that actually. More casual players also have 3 dates of note, though that content is significantly less enduring, I think. As an aside and a small criticism, the fact that we still don't have access to the relic questlines for an expansion until roughly the halfway point of that expansion is a huge oversight as far as I'm concerned. In A Realm Reborn, we had that, but as expansions have passed, the relic has been shoved further and further back despite being one of the primary sources of long-term, repeatable, casual endgame content. Maybe I'm getting a little off topic, but that's always bothered me, and it bothered me today as well. It feels like the Point 1 series is the latest that first step should be implemented. The Alliance Raid was showcased and it looks absolutely gorgeous. I'm not going to talk about it for too long because this video isn't really a live letter recap, but instead more of a discussion about what's to come, but I had to mention that just how lovely it looks really stood out to me. The first boss which got showcased a tiny bit is Preesh, and I'm sure Final Fantasy XI players are super excited about this and can instantly reel off 5 facts as to why you too should be elated. But I'm not one of them. So instead, I have another observation for you. They changed Black Mage quite significantly in 7.1. Firstly, it has 2 stacks of Ley Lines now, and I'm assuming that means it's going to be on a 60-second cooldown. But secondly, and more interestingly, Despair seems to be a native instant cast. During the clip, you can see that Yoshi P uses Despair and it is an instant cast. He does have triple cast up, but when he uses Despair, doing so does not consume a stack of his currently active triple cast. So the job that traditionally was an immobile glass cannon is getting even more native mobility, and I can assume we'll receive a couple of small damage buffs to go alongside both of these. Could the Age of Black Mage be back upon us? They showed the gear from it too, and it's alright. Following the 24-man stint, the Chaotic Alliance Raid came next, and my god did it deliver in a lot of fields I was hoping for. So let's cover what we actually know. First of all, as I discussed in my previous video about the topic as a possibility, this content does not follow the standard Alliance party composition, instead conforming to the party comp you'd come to expect elsewhere for 8-man full parties. Each party uses 2 tanks, 2 healers, and 4 DPS, meaning the full alliance is going to be comprised of 6 tanks, 6 healers, and 12 DPS. Interestingly, you can enter the instance with as little as 12 players, though there is no scaling based on player count. The tuning is intended for the full 24 players, and it will never become easier if you have access to less members in your instance, and that means that an undersized challenge of this fight sounds like it might be really interesting to do if it's even possible. Really hope that is the case, and we'll have to wait and see how the mechanics pan out to know for sure, because it would be really cool to give it a go, and I love when pieces of content have multiple ways to clear that can be player-made challenge modes in a sense. Loot was also covered in a broad sense. There are no weekly drops at all. making the content fully farmable. It drops item level 730 gear equivalent to Savage and upgraded Tombstone, 2 mounts, minions, and hairstyles. The mounts are brilliant too, I mean look at them. The PvP tile even has a custom animation and it's really good. You can tell a lot of love has been put in this in a desperate attempt to avoid repeating the major mistake that the Criterion dungeons made. There are a lot of reasons not only to clear, but to farm as well here. More than that, a bonus reward system has been integrated. There's a first time bonus, with additional reward tokens being dropped in proportion to the quantity of new players in the duty, and also a limited time bonus system that seems to be reminiscent of the old light system from previous relics. It's a randomly occurring reward bonus that persists for a handful of hours, incentivizing you to create unplanned parties and to go in to farm when the bonus window appears. Some of the drops can be sold on the market board as well. So this is clearly very good. We need more farmable content and duties that have a reason to be farmed. We also need additional routes to obtain item level 730 gear, especially in the off patch, and having one in this case that is unlinked from the weekly system is very welcome. It leads me to ask a question that I've asked many times before though. Why on earth is Savage still locked when this exists in the game? Savage should be unlocked at the very latest on the same day that this releases. There is no reason for it to be limited to your weekly clears for an 8-month period, even after play rates drop off the cliff in the 0.1 release. Tombstones too desperately need to have their weekly cap increased. Even if we get a staggered increase with it eventually doubling by the time the off patch launches, I take that as a short-term solution. As far as I see it, the most healthy design is to inhibit your ability to quickly gear on an even patch or for your primary job, and then when that odd catch-up patch releases, or for alternative roles, allow players multiple routes to best in slot item level so that they can challenge the only content in the game that requires it, which is the brand new ultimate that also came out alongside this patch. Additionally, can we get some altered version of the new player bonus rewards in Savage? Like, please? How about for each first time bonus in your clear, you get a percentage chance of getting a book drop into your inventory, like a 10 or a 25. It gives you a reason to go back in after your weekly is done, and because it is a percentage chance and not a guarantee, it's so high effort to effectively abuse that it just isn't really worth doing so. Could be nice. There were also notes about the difficulty, mentioning that it is roughly on par with a first turn of Savage in terms of challenge, but that because of all the moving parts that accompany having 24 players in duty, it may be more difficult to coordinate and actually successfully do the mechanics. If by first turn of Savage they mean M1S, then this is a very beginner and casual player friendly piece of content akin to an extreme trial in terms of difficulty, because M1S is that too. You can do this, and really, even if you don't raid too much, I think you should give it a go. Maybe this experiment plays off, maybe it flops, but I'm here for it and down to give it a try. I hope it's good, I hope they can pull it off, and I hope it brings more people into high-end raiding through a more casual approach. Thanks to the trailer, we also got a small in-motion peek at one of the mechanics playing out, the very one I theorized about in a previous video. It seems I was right for a good chunk of it, but there were two key elements that weren't visible in that initial screenshot that we can easily see here, and they definitely provide more context on how this phase is going to play out. You can see that not only are there the PvP tiles, the towers, and the square platforms with additional towers on two sides of the room, but that on top of that, the large concrete circle around the edge of the arena is traversable. Players are walking along it, and can use it to relocate to different sections of the battlefield. This seems to be key as well, because of the mechanic on display. Certain players will be teleported from one position to another, with the exact same mechanic as was showcased in Eden E7 and the Savage variant. It's quite possible, or even probable, that we may be utilising those teleports to position players close to towers before they go off, so that they may be safely soaked. Moving on, and PvP will be getting its traditional once per expansion major update. And this is a good one, actually. First, there will be an update to the hit and action detection. Up until this point, the hit detection itself was triggered when the action was executed, but now the timing of the hit detection will more closely match the accompanying visual effect. One thing I really hope is the case is that alongside this we get improved responsiveness provided to potion kits and ideally protects, because sometimes they can result in some fairly hilarious clips. Every job except Viper and Pictomancer will receive adjustments to their toolkit. Some will even have abilities removed and added, some will get balance and potency adjustments, and some limit breaks will change in how much gauge they need to attain to fully charge. One specific job that was outlined for significant changes was Black Mage. Rival wings and front lines will be getting some pretty big balancing adjustments, and I hope that means melee DPS are going to be killable once again, because the fact that the current status quo has remained for so long is absolutely wild to me. 2 crystalline conflict maps will receive arena improvements, and in the most sweeping alteration, seasons will now be ranked regionally rather than per data center. This is clearly a change primarily to aggregate the dwindling PvP player base on each region into one data center to help with queue times, and they've also likely realized that the top 100 is just not very competitive at all, and that doing this might instill a little bit of that competitive nature. For next season, the PvP ranked data centers will be Gaia, Chaos, Primal, and Materia. It'll rotate each season so everybody will get a turn eventually. In another fantastic change, now only the best performing character on a service account will appear in the rankings at all. Honestly fantastic, because what ended up often being the case was that the small PvP community would just go and get top 100 on multiple or sometimes every data center, and really, it wasn't healthy for anybody aside from their own egos. For all regions aside from OCE as well, it will no longer be top 100 going forward, but instead top 300. What intrigued me more than any of this though, was what he said next. We are working on a matching system that involves every type of content, with no more further information or context. My first statement in response to that is great, but please tell me more. I think it's fair to assume they are considering putting together a simple PvP queue, maybe alongside the reintroduction of the feast, if that ever actually happens, but we'll have to wait and see. Actually, while we're talking about PvP, I'm still waiting for those old feast ranking mounts to be added as wolf collar rewards, Yoshida. Ultimate was next, and as a raid-brained player myself, this one was what I'd been waiting for. This little snippet was really all I needed. We got the full introductory cutscene, a messy showcase of the first few seconds of the first mechanic, and some comments about the overall difficulty that I'm sure we'll look back on in a month and laugh at. Looks like Rinon is becoming an Ascian, and we have confirmation that Fatebreaker is indeed the first phase. All I can say is that, well, I can't wait. A change that has been made to ultimate encounters across the board are that from patch 7.1 onwards, if you enter the duty with double jobs, you will not generate any passive limit break. You'll still get it through non-passive methods, but this is clearly a huge blow to, for example, 8 tank UCOB runs, or the composition that initially cleared the healerless top run. Both of these were completed using double jobs in some way, shape, or form. That said, I don't think this is a harmful change as such, and I'm totally okay with it existing. Is this the secret Pictomancer balancing decree by any chance? In the next major update, I won! Early this year I made a video discussing in depth how I felt that Final Fantasy XIV lacked teaching tools, and that the Hall of the Novice sorely needed a major expansion that brought it up to scratch with the game of today, and that it would act as a system to ease players into high-end content. Lo and behold, here it is! I'm not going to be egotistical enough to claim that I did this, because I'm pretty sure it's just the result of aggregate feedback over an extended period of time from a lot of different people, but I do feel pretty fulfilled knowing that it was something that I vocally requested in the lead up to the media tour, and that it ended up getting implemented. The new Hall of the Novice tutorials will showcase a number of mechanics for you with explanations, allowing you to test them out for yourself in a safe environment, and that information will be trialed in 3 exams that will combine and quickfire those mechanics at you to see if you fully understand and can deal with them. Yoshida mentions that the 3rd trial is actually quite hard, and that he would love to see veteran players try to clear it on their first attempt. I wonder. I hope they have sufficient incentivization to bring new players in to complete these, and that they are challenging enough to make those players actually learn from them. I'm not going to go through the changes to features like G-Pose or the HUD, So I'll pop up those changes on screen now whilst I talk about the related addition that I'm excited about. You can now copy settings from one character to another, and that's absolutely brilliant, and we've needed it to be natively available in the game for years now. You can copy HUD layouts, macros, config settings, and more. Big win. So what do I think of our offerings? Whilst these new weapons from the weapon design contest that will be added to the game are showcased on screen, well, I have mixed feelings. I still firmly believe that one of the biggest issues with Final Fantasy XIV patch content is not the sheer amount of content on offer, but instead when they decide to release it. We really needed that first Relic update with this patch, honestly, or something akin to it in both size and longevity for the average player. As a raider, I'm fed pretty well thanks to Ultimate alone, and a new style of content in the Chaotic Alliance Raid. For somebody who doesn't engage with Ultimate though, many of their options in patch 7.1 do not have much staying power. Everything we're getting is good, don't get me wrong. I just wish there was one more meaty piece of content included in this upcoming patch so that we can consider it a true win. In fairness, this is the classic quality of life patch that we get every expansion without fail, and point 1 is often quiet for those that don't engage with Ultimate. But I do believe it isn't the ideal state of affairs and that those previous cycles should not be mindlessly followed. Personally, I prefer to receive Hildebrand or those extra quests later if it meant we had a chance of getting the relic earlier. I know it's not really as simple as that, but I believe it should be much more of a priority for the team. With all that said, I have a lot to look forward to personally, and I hope you too are able to find reasons to be excited for the next few months of Final Fantasy XIV. And if not, I have a really spicy video coming in the next week or two. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day.